Welcome, everybody, into an all-new episode of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. I am Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we look at everything going on in the world of combat sports, and this is our last episode of the year. So what better way to do it than do a year in review? Let's look at all the things that we cover here on the Combat Sports Report and talk about what we thought was the best of 2024. Maybe at the end we'll look forward to what's coming up in the new year. But let's start off right away with our man, Ian Parker. You see him all the time talking PFL with us. No one better to break it down than him, especially when we talk about the betting angle. Different than we're going to usually do with him. We're not going to talk about bets. We're not going to talk about, fights that we want to get action in on. We're going to talk about fights that we already watched this year. So, Ian, thanks so much for joining us. Happy holidays. It's been a great year for the PFL, and I'm sure things are only going to get bigger for 2025. Why don't we, before we get into the best of, why don't we just talk to you about that? What do you feel like the year was for the PFL this year, about the strides that were made, the things like pay-per-view, the folding in a Bellator? How do you think everything went in 2024, and what are you looking forward to next year from them?
I think we got a lot of new fighters that some people probably weren't familiar with that are killers, that if you were to put them up against fighters in any organization, there would be a level of success there. I believe that they have developed some new people, the obvious Dakota Ditcheva. You have fighters like Shamil Musayev, guys like Thad Jean. And I think for the PFL right now, what's going to be the most fun challenge is putting this all together, learning what worked, what didn't work, what the fans are really looking for, utilizing your bigger names with your roster and having it make sense when it comes to the championships outside of the season format, utilizing your PFL Europe. You saw a lot of, if you guys watch PFL Europe, those finals were all knockouts, a lot of good prospects there. So I think it's going to be an exciting year, 2025. There's going to be more events. We're going to see a lot of the bigger names competing. There's going to be some different ideas being floated around that I think are also going to be exciting for fans. Now it's all about executing, which I think the PFL is going to have no problem doing.
Well, you brought up some great names there, some great fighters we have seen have some awesome performances throughout this year. So why don't we just get right into those first and foremost? Male fighter, female fighter of the year for the PFL this year. For us, the ones that we looked at that we thought maybe should make this list and be in the running, you brought up Musayev, 4-0, 3 finishes, won the lightweight title this year. Dennis Golstov, 4-0, 3 finishes, 1 submission, won the heavyweight title. Johnny Eblen, 2-0, but had great fights over Kasungai and, of course, Edwards on to the 2 biggest cards for the PFL this year. And then Paul Hughes, 3-0 in his career, not all in PFL, right? He had 1 fight outside the organization, then the 1 fight inside Bellator, then the PFL fight to elevate him now into this title fight. I mean, if there's anybody who's been on a more rocket trajectory this year in the PFL, I don't think you could find one more than Hughes. Of those 4 fighters, who do you think should be the male fighter of the year for the PFL?
For me, it's going to be Musayev. This is somebody that I would put in any organization, the top 10 between 155 and 170, who I think presents a danger everywhere the fight goes. People don't realize he's an excellent wrestler. You can't take him down, but his kickboxing is through the roof. You saw him do this to Malatov. You saw him do it to his other opponent before that, who's known as a big top-tier Dagestani wrestler. So for me, it's going to be Musayev. I understand what Hughes did in the 1 fight. I think for him, I would give him Rookie of the Year with PFL. So if we end up going to that topic, I might have jumped the gun. There's a lot with Paul Hughes that we really like, right? There's a lot of fun things that are coming up. But if he goes out there and gets destroyed by Usman Nurmagomedov, that's where I'm going to have a little bit of an issue here. Not saying that happens, but it's a big task with your second fight, calling it really in the big leagues. Musayev, though, I think is a diamond in the rough that PFL really held on to, and he performed, and I think he's going to move on. I think he's a future champ. I think you're going to see some fun matchups with him coming up. I'm excited for his future.
He had an absolutely great year for sure. Great pick by you. Then female fight of the year. You mentioned Ditcheva. We have her in there 4-0 after winning that title, going from PFL Europe champion in 2023 to being PFL champion in 2024. Tyler Santos in there, but obviously lost to Ditcheva, so that's got to be a little bit of a mark there to kind of ruin that record for us. Cyborg only had 1 fight this year, unfortunately, for the PFL, but it was a huge one, winning that title against Pacheco on the Super Fights pay-per-view. And then we threw in there as well Clarissa Shields. Only 1 fight in the PFL. She also had a boxing match where she won a bunch of titles as well. So it was a good year for her overall, despite only 2 fights. Who do you think is, it seems to me pretty easy, who is the PFL Women's Fighter of the Year, but what is your take on that?
Sure. For Clarissa Shields, look, I give her a lot of credit for putting what she's done in boxing kind of on the line to jump to MMA. However, her fights really showed that she should not be in MMA. The ground game is really not there. The takedown defense isn't there. She won, right, that last fight, but like I said, I'll give her credit for jumping in. I don't see much of a future there. She doesn't have enough time to dedicate to both sports. It's just not the way. But I give her all the credit in the world. She got in there. She made no excuses, and she did it. For Cyborg, she beat Pacheco. There's a reason why she is, probably one of the two best women's fighter to ever do it. I hope she fights someone of that same caliber on her legacy tour, she calls it. My only issue with her is, or whoever that runs that social media account, and you know me at this point, man. I'm as honest and transparent as it gets. Calling out people like Leah McCord is just not it for someone of her level of legacy. So maybe her and Pacheco do it again, or they find someone else. Tyler Santos, I would give her comeback fighter of the year for the PFL. She was out for a while. She came back, and she looked great up until she fought Dakota. And then, of course, Dakota, without a doubt, female fighter of the year for the PFL.
Absolutely. A great year for her. It's hard to beat that by anybody. Let's get into KO of the year with you. We have on our list, we have Elvin Espinoza versus Adam Picolito on PFL 2 with that flying knee. We have Renan Ferreira against Ryan Bader in PFL versus Bellator to start the year with that great 21-second knockout by him. We have Masarov versus Groju in PFL Europe 1 with that 10-second head kick. That was filthy, although very weird, obviously, situation the way that his opponent came out in that fight. We have Ali Walsh versus Stapleton with that overhand right at PFL 8. Or do you think it's Yag Shamirodov over Kasanganay at PFL 10 with that 58-second knockout in the first round?
Yeah, I would give it to Yag Shamirodov out of all those. I would also give a runner-up to Musayev knocking out Umalatov. Both, listen, anytime you get a knockout to win a title against people that you are, quote-unquote, not supposed to beat, Double Yag Shamirodov was an underdog to Impa, and he went out there and made it look relatively easy. And same thing with Musayev. So I would give it to Yag Shamirodov. I am very excited about his future. I hope the PFL uses him correctly. He looks like a wrecking ball right now, and he's got momentum. Get him a big-name fight, and let's show the world that he means business.
Absolutely does. Can't wait to see what is in the cards for him in 2025. How about fight of the year? For us, our nominees were Eblin versus Kasanganay, PFL versus Bellator, that split decision win there. I know we've talked about how that could have gone probably either way on that one. Lytton Vassell versus Moldavsky was a good split decision in PFL 4. We have Santos and Bishop split decision in PFL 4 as well. Then there's other ones like Sabatello versus Dayron, which was the majority decision in PFL 8, where we had that kind of weird things going on in that fight. Loughnane versus Kamaka III at PFL 9, or Hughes versus McKee at the PFL Super Fights pay-per-view.
When you talk about fight of the year, for me, that's either a crazy end of fight knockout, or something that was super competitive. So I would go with Eblin and Impa. You have two of the top guys, in 205, 185, that went to a split decision. And Impa had Eblin on skates for a little bit. No one's been able to do that. So I would go with that.
That was a great fight, one that people should definitely go back and watch if they haven't watched it before. And we have just under a minute left. Best card of the year to you for the PFL? Was it PFL 10, where we just crowned all the champions? Was it the Battle of the Giants pay-per-view? Was it PFL Europe 4, where we had all those great European titles that we just watched this past weekend? The first card of the year, PFL Bellator, where we had the crossovers? Or maybe even PFL 2, where we had a lot of finishes on that card?
You know what? This is a tough question. I loved the PFL championships. The thing that the PFL has a challenge with is that you're putting on 6 title fights that could all go a potential 25, right? But it didn't happen. They were all knockouts. Even the Loughnane fight was fun. I'm going to go with the PFL championships. I think everyone who went out there performed and was one of the better cards than any other card, any organization. PFL Europe, I will give a runner-up because some of those knockouts were nasty.
There were some filthy knockouts in both those cards. They were both awesome to watch around the holidays. Ian Parker, thanks so much for all the time you've given us in 2024. I'm looking forward to talking to you again in the new year about what's next for the PFL.
Looking forward to it.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
They may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out and just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report, and now it's time for us to give our best of 2024 for the PFL. Thanks so much to Ian Parker for joining us. Great to pick his brain. Of course, no one knows more, but I'm going to pretend I do right now and pick some because, there's some of ours that are going to line up. There are some that we agree on completely. Some I'm taking a little different approach here for the best of 2024 for the PFL. Obviously, a great year for them. 19 events that they had in total, adding a whole new slate of fighters as they completed the merger with Bellator and brought in all their fighters, utilized some of those in the great PFL versus Bellator matchups, having the great tournaments that they had throughout the year that they've been known for. And then, of course, the pay-per-view Super Fights card just before we closed out the year was awesome for PFL. And let's pick out what we thought was the best that they did this year in 2024. Let's start first. Male Fighter of the Year. As you heard us bring up there with Ian, we had Musayev, 4-0, 3 finishes, won the lightweight title. Golstov, 4-0, 3 TKO wins, 1 submission, won the heavyweight title. Johnny Alban continued to defend his belt first against Kasanganai and then against Edwards, 2-0 for him this year. And then Paul Hughes, 3-0, not in the PFL, 1 in a different promotion, 1 in the Bellator. Then finished off with the win in PFL against AJ McKee, a huge step up in competition, and got him a chance at the title now that we will see coming up next year on the road to Dubai. All great fighters, all great years. I'm going to slightly disagree with Ian here. I'm going with Golstov as my number one, as you saw there on the graphic. Musayev had an amazing year, but if you're going to have a tiebreaker on who got the better year, I'm going to go with the guy who finished every one of his opponents in Golstov. 3 TKOs, 1 submission, as we said. Also, this is the guy who's been there for years. He's been with the PFL through a number of tournaments. He's been a pro for a long time. Finally gets that title he's been searching for. I got to give him Fighter of the Year. That extra little storyline of the finishes and finally reaching that goal that has eluded him. I'm going to go with Golstov for Fighter of the Year for the men in the PFL. Then, Female Fighter of the Year. Our list, Dakota Ditcheva, 4-0 after her win throughout the tournament, then beat Santos, her toughest opponent that people thought would give her trouble pretty easily. Talia Santos, 3-1. Her first year in the PFL, had a great run through there, but then just ran into that steam truck that is Dakota Ditcheva, who just hits like a Mack truck and hits from all different angles. Elbows, knees, punches, it doesn't matter. She's going to find an opening. She's going to hurt you, so no shame in Santos losing that title fight. Chris Cyborg, only 1 fight so far for the PFL this year, unfortunately. But it was a big one, beating Pacheco at that pay-per-view Super Fights, the title fight that she gets there, the new belt to add to her long collection as one of the greatest women in the history of MMA. And Claressa Shields, we threw her in there. Now, there's a lot of women who probably had more fights than Claressa in the PFL. She only had the 1. It was only a split decision win and actually missed weight before that fight, so it wasn't her greatest showing in the PFL, but I'm adding in there as well to her year that she had that great boxing fight that she won multiple titles in. Obviously, she's known as a boxer, an Olympian in boxing. You know, the MMA is just something that's new to her, so it wasn't her best performance, but we gave her a little love there, throwing her on the list, and for what she's doing with the PFL as well. But it's obvious. There is no one else who could possibly take this title, of course, from Dakota Ditcheva. Undefeated, picking apart every opponent, all finishes, and then going against an opponent in Santos who was talking a lot of trash, who has a lot more experience, who has been in championship fights before in the UFC, and making it look like she wasn't even on her level. She picked her apart, found every which way she could. Every time Santos tried to kind of smother her with a clinch, she'd break free and make her pay for it. You know, every time she got a little space, she'd land those big shots. When she'd cover up the head, she'd land those big knees and shots to the gut. When she dropped those hands to protect that, she'd pay for it with some fists to the face. So no matter what she did, Dakota Ditcheva had an answer, and she goes from being PFL European champion to PFL champion, and I give her Female Fighter of the Year. Can't wait to see what is up next for her. There's been a number of interviews that she's talked about big plans. She talked about maybe other organizations trying to steal her, and the PFL saying, no way, she's ours, and we got things that we're going to do with her next year, and we can't wait to see what those are in 2025. Next up, let's go KO of the Year. Now, for me, there was a lot of obviously great finishes in the PFL this year, and there were some of them that, you know, for me, when I was looking at KO of the Year, I want to see who got it done quickly, who was the biggest one, because there's great KOs, but I want the ones that are the flashiest, the ones that are the most dominating performances. So these are the ones that I picked out. Espinoza versus Picolito, PFL 2. Ferreira versus Bader, the PFL versus Bellator card. Musarraf versus Groju in PFL Europe 1. Ali Walsh versus Stapleton at PFL 8. And Yakshimuradov versus Kasunganai at PFL 10. Now, I don't deny that was a great KO for Yakshimuradov that Ian picked out. But, you know, for me, it was a little later in that first round. It was good. You know, it was only a minute in. Not that it was later, but, you know, it was a good one. But I thought that was kind of set up by Kasunganai kind of, you know, being a little more aggressive than he should have been and leaving that opening. The one from Musarraf, I mean, it was a 10-second head kick KO. It's hard to go against that, except I don't know what the hell his opponent was doing. The guy came in there with his head down. He was all cocky, and because of that, took a kick to the head, and that's it. It was a great knockout, but I can't give it when the opponent's not even protecting himself. Ferreira had a great quick one against Bader, but then him getting dropped late in the year might have taken a little away from me. Espinoza, Picolito, it was a great one. A flying knee, those are always exciting. But to me, I'm going to go with Ali Walsh because this was, you know, a back and forth of 55 seconds, only a minute, but both these guys were throwing heavy hands, and he just throws that big overhand right. And those other ones, they were great, but it was, you know, usually a big hit. Guy goes to the ground, more punches needed, more, you know, kicks needed to finish it off. Look at this, just boom, right hand, face to the mat. How are you going to say that's not the best one of the year? For me, that is. Ali Walsh getting the knockout there with the overhand right. Fight of the year are ones that we brought up to Ian Parker, of course. Evelyn Kasunganai at PFL versus Bellator. Vasyl versus Moldavsky at PFL 4. Santos versus Bishop at PFL 4. Sabatello versus Dayron at PFL 8. Lofton Kamaka 3 versus PFL 9. Hughes McKee at the Super Fights Battle of the Giants. All those were kind of split decisions. Some of them were majority decisions. So, you know, in all regards, could have gone each way. I went with Lofton versus Kamaka 3 in that one because all those other ones, there's a lot more, you know, a stand-up fighter versus a ground fighter and who was controlling the action. That fight, both those guys were thrown down. Lofton had Kamaka on the ground. It looked like it could have been over in the first round. Kamaka comes back, starts picking him apart in the second round before Lofton gets a little bit more in the third round to pull away and win that. So both those guys back and forth, same style, just who's going to last longer. I like that one for Fight of the Year. And then finally, best cards. You had PFL 10, PFL Battle of the Giants, PFL Europe 4, PFL versus Bellator, and PFL 2. All on our list. I'm going to agree with Ian. PFL 10, those championship fights, all great battles, a lot of finishes that we didn't expect. How can you not pick that one? Best card of the year for the PFL on Black Friday. We come back. We're going to give our best of the year for BKFC here on the Combat Sports Report.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
Like, they may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
This is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid. In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans, bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
All right, let's shift now to the BKFC and talk about what we thought was the best of the year for them. We're going to catch up with our man Chris Lights Out Lyle next segment, get his opinion. But before he does, tell us what he thinks. Let's give our opinion here. Let's get right into it. We got a little bit of a time here, time crunch to get all this in. There's so many great things, so let's give it its due right now. Best fighter of the year for the men. We got Tenaglia on there, 2-0. He got wins over Lilly and Soto. Kai Stewart, 2-0. Defended his title twice against Duran and Jimmy Rivera. Tough fight against Rivera. That was close. And Perdomo, undefeated, just dropping fools left and right in heavyweight with 4 KOs. And then finally, Blas, 3-0. Beat Richardson to win the title. Beat Reber to defend it. Any of these guys can clearly win. All these guys had great years. A lot of them either defending titles or winning it, except for Perdomo, who's probably on his way to getting a shot at that title. But for me, I'm going to give Fight of the Year to Blas. 3-0, unbeaten, and when you go in there against Rockstar Richardson and just demolish him to the point that he's fighting the ref, he doesn't even know where he is, that is impressive. You know, we said, can this guy do what he's been doing, just rolling everybody? He did. And then you go against Ryan Reber, who is one of the tops in that division and has, you know, just destroyed a lot of people as well, picking them apart. Takes quick work of him, doesn't even let him get warmed up. So even though all those guys had great years, and 3 of those 4 are holding titles at the end of 2024, I'm going to go with Blas there as the fighter of the year for the men on the BKFC side. Then female fighter of the year. Little less action from these ladies. Hopefully next year we can see more fights from all of them and really build these women's divisions up even more so for the BKFC. Christine Vicens had a great year, getting a great win against Melanie Shaw, then getting her title shot against Faria. Natalie Gage, undefeated, 2-0. Beat Click and Roman. Didn't get to title contention yet, but could be on her way if she continues this streak in 2025. Taylor Starling dropped down a weight class into that 115 weight class. Had that fight against Savage she called for and had a brutal war with her. Came out on the winning end of it. Then goes against Britton Hart. Has a brutal battle with her. Does not win that one, but gets the headlining card of Sturgis. Shows why she was in that fight. Shows she's, you know, just as good as any other woman. Just not as good that night as Britton Hart. But 1-1 record for her, a great year still. Britton Hart, the aforementioned champion right there, 1-0. Only the one fight, unfortunately, but showed why she holds that title, showed why she's one of the best and holds a lot of records for the women as far as, you know, number of fights, title defenses, things like that, where she beat Starling in that great fight at Sturgis. And then Christine Faria, the misfit, undefeated, 2-0. She defended her title twice. Could have been a 3. She was supposed to have that fight up there in Connecticut. Unfortunately, that fell through. And instead had that fight against Wong. It was lackluster, But I don't put that on her. That's on Masang Wong, grabbing her every chance she can get. That's not the way she wins a fight. And then had a great fight against Vicente to end the year. I give Christine the Misfit Faria Female Fighter of the Year in the BKFC. Now let's get into Knockout of the Year. I mean, these ones were quick. We're going to talk longer about these knockouts than many of them actually took to happen. Ruben Ward versus Robbie Peralta, 6 seconds at BKFC Fight Night in Pechanga in July. Chris Camozzi over Sawyer DP to win the Cruiserweight title at BKFC 67, 1 minute and 6 seconds out there in Denver in October. Anthony Garrett versus LeVar Johnson, 12 seconds at BKFC Fight Night LA, November 23rd. On short notice, too. Keith Richardson versus Michael Larimore, 21 seconds at BKFC 69, December 6th. And then Justin Watson, Cole Farrell, December 6th, again at BKFC 69 in Atlanta. I mean, all these could clearly win Knockout of the Year in any other year, but now they're all put up against each other. 12 seconds, 21 seconds, 6 seconds, 1 minute and 6. But how do you beat a 3-second knockout? Now, Ruben Ward might say his should have happened in 3. And Anthony Garrett probably said his should happen within 10. If they don't start the count, the refs would just declare it right there. But the big overhand right by Watson, just right off the scratch, go fight, he wins. And he said he planned it that way, too, if you could believe it. You got to give love to that. I mean, how do you beat a 3-second knockout by Justin Watson? Fight of the Year, Taylor Stalling versus Jenny Savage. We mentioned that one in Prospects card back in January 27th. John Dodson versus Aguero at BKFC 59, March 29th. For that title that Dodson still holds because it was declared a draw. Randall versus Ridge, BKFC Clearwater, the Fight Night card on December 12th. Tenaglia versus Soto at BKFC DAZN in Spain. Hart versus Starling. So Starling makes this list twice. BKFC 63 Sturgis, and Stewart versus Rivera, BKFC DAZN, November 9th. It was a unanimous decision, but obviously could have gotten different if they counted those knockdowns that they just called slips. All these awesome fights, a lot of them draws or split decisions or very tight decisions. I'm going to go Tenaglia versus Soto. Both these guys knocked each other down. Both these guys were back and forth, just warriors till the end through all 5 rounds. This wasn't a situation where these guys slowed down at any point. They gave it their all throughout the fight. And Tenaglia gets the better of it, but neither of them should hang their heads for what the performance they put on in that bullfighting ring in Spain. Best card, Knucklemania 4, BKFC 62, BKFC 63, or BKFC on DAZN. Well, if you're going to have fight of the night, how can you not also have card of the night? 3 title fights and in a bullfighting ring in Spain? How do you go against that one? That, to me, was the best fight card of the year for the BKFC. When we come back, we'll talk to Chris Lights Out Lido and find out what he thinks was the best in 2024 for the BKFC here on the Combat Sports Report on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid as we continue our year in review for 2024 and talk about all the great things that happened with some of our partners here in the combat sports world. And you're going to talk about what's going on in the BKFC. Who better to talk to than our man Chris Lights Out Lytle, who joins us now. We appreciate your time, Chris. Happy holidays to you. Before we get into the categories and, maybe who is the best of knockouts, fighters, fights, all those things that we have planned for you, let's first get your opinion on the 2024 for the BKFC. It was obviously a huge year, ton of great fights, and also some big partnerships that were developed and announced. New venues opened up around the world and in the U.S. How do you feel about 2024 for the BKFC, and what are you looking forward to most next year?
Man, 2024 was just really, it just set the table for what's coming up in 2025. I feel like we're really on the verge of blowing up. I think we're going to go more mainstream. I think the more people see us, the more people like us. It's just a matter of time. That's what this is all about, us getting visible to many people. Conor McGregor coming on really helped that. I just think, man, the fights have been amazing. Our company's been amazing. We're about to blow up here pretty soon. I just can't wait till 2025 because so much is coming up.
We're looking forward to big things, too. We're hoping to finally get out there and see you guys in person down in Philadelphia for Knucklemania 5. That card is stacking up to be awesome. Can't wait to see what's going on for you guys in BKFC's home territory there in the city of brotherly love. But let's look at what we saw this year and pick some of our favorites from what we saw in 2024 in the BKFC. First up, let's talk male fighter of the year. So for us on our list, we got Franco Tenaglia up there after he had a great year for the BKFC, winning that title over there in Spain. Kai Stewart, who defended his belt twice as well with the Brian Duran and Jimmy Rivera fights, even though we questioned the refereeing maybe in the Rivera fight a little bit. Some of those knockdowns could have changed things, but still, he gets the win, so undefeated year for him. Leonardo Perdomo, big dude, big hands, big knockouts, 4-0, 4 finishes so far this year. And then Alberto Blas, undefeated as well, gets the title from Richardson, then defends it against Reber. Who are you picking for your male fighter of the year in the BKFC?
It's hard to go away from any of those guys, but, I mean, to me, you got Perdomo out there, heavyweight, undefeated, not even making it out of the first round. This guy, you can't even make it out of the round with the guy. That's tough to deal with. So, to me, everybody wants to see the big fellas. Everybody wants to know about the heavyweight champ. I think we have a guy who's primed and ready. He wants to get in there and take people out quickly. He comes throwing bombs. He doesn't care. That guy's, you go 4-0 and 4 first-round knockouts. What else can you do, man? I think he has to get it.
Yeah, a great year for him. He was up there for us as well. Like you said, you keep raising the level of competition early on when you get a guy in there and he's beating people. You're like, all right, but who is this guy beating? I mean, the level of competition kept getting raised, and he leveled up every time. It didn't drop off. It didn't take longer. It just was more violent every time. A great year for Perdomo for sure. Female fighter of the year now. These women were a little less active, unfortunately, so it's harder to pick some of them. We got to maybe stretch some of these nominations, but we still love all of them and looking forward to seeing what's next for them in 2025. I mean, you had Vichen's rising up to getting her title shot. We thought maybe she could have jumped, of course, Masan Wong and even gotten that earlier, but she gets to her title shot before the year is done. You also have Natalie Gage, who's 2-0 with wins over Click and Roman so far in 2024 for her. You have Taylor Starling, 1-1 for her, but came back, dropped to a new weight class, got a great fight against Savage, and then got to fight for the title against Britton Hart on an awesome card and a great fight back and forth between those two ladies out in Sturgis. Then, of course, Britton Hart, the aforementioned champion right there. Only one fight for her this year, but it was a great fight against Taylor Starling. And then Christine Faria, the misfit. There are 2 title fights for her. I give her credit, too, that she's supposed to have another one. She wasn't as active as she wanted to be. The fight against Wong wasn't the fight that she wanted to be, but I don't put that on her either. Her opponent was just clutching and grabbing the whole fight. So, she only had the 2 fights, but I thought probably could have been more if it was up to her. Great year for her as well. Who do you think is the female fighter of the year for the BKFC?
It's unfortunate. If you didn't do this for another 3 or 4 days, we would have the answer because we have Vicens fighting Faria. I think whoever wins that's definitely going to be the person who gets female fighter of the year because that's going to give them their 3rd win. It's a title level. That's what it's going to be about. So I'm holding off telling us until we find out who wins that fight. Once what that is, that's going to be the champ. However, I really do like what I've seen from Natalie Gage. She's fought for us twice. puts on wars and comes a fight. Doesn't look like she gets rattled at all. Just nice, straight, clean boxing.
Great year for all those ladies, and looking forward to getting the women's divisions expanded even further, hopefully, in the coming year. Let's go to knockout of the year now. And it's funny, we talk about Perdomo and all the great fights and the knockouts he's had this year. He didn't even go on our list, which is amazing so far. I mean, maybe we're leaving him out there. Unfortunately, maybe we're wrong. But, I mean, let's look at these knockouts that we had. How do you knock one of these off? Ruben War versus Robbie Problems Peralta out at PKFC Fight Night Pechanga. 6-second knockout. You had Chris Camozzi winning his title against Sawyer DP at BKF 67, 1:06. So I guess getting a little lazy over there, taking an extra minute. Anthony Garrett versus LeVar Johnson, the heavyweight battle at Fight Night LA back in November, which lasted 12 seconds. Keith Richardson versus Michael Larimore, 21-second knockout for him at BKFC 69 in Atlanta. A great return for the Rockstar Richardson after losing that fight against Blas, where we all, had our questions at how he was doing after that, because it was just brutal to watch. Comes back and shows he's the same guy he was before. Gets a quick work of his opponent Larimore. And then our last one, Justin Watson, Colt Farrell, again, BKFC 69 in Atlanta. 3 seconds. So only one of those ones even lasted more than a minute, even lasted more than 25 seconds. Which one is your knockout of the year?
It's hard to get away from Watson with the 2-second knockout. I'm happy to go with that. Or really, to me, the Ruben War one was amazing. That's the main event. Big difference. Peralta, very good fighter, very difficult. That was a pretty close match that a lot of people thought on paper. We waited for the right time. He backed up that 1-2, boom, right on the button. That was a beautiful. He talks about it. He said that wasn't an accident. He set that up. He lured him in. He took 2 steps back. He waited for him to commit, and then he threw the 1-2. He planned that. He made it work. I mean, I don't know. A knockout is great, but man, when you set it up like that against a high-level guy, that was pretty impressive to me.
Yeah,
watch the way he backs up. He sets it up. He steps up. Boom. And that could have called that right there. That could have been a 2 or 3 second knockout right there. If the ref doesn't start the count,
right, that could have been, for sure. We talked to him about that. We saw the same thing when we talked to Anthony Garrett about his LeVar Johnson knockout. That could have been even quicker if the ref doesn't start the count on both those. But both those guys had a great year for sure. All great performances from all those fighters in that. And that brings us now to Fight of the Year. For us on our list, we have Starling Savage, the Prospect Series card in New Mexico early on the year, the first card, I believe, of 2024 for the BKFC. A great battle for them. Dodson Aguero, BKFC 59, the draw that we have in that title fight. Randall versus J.R. Ridge at Clearwater with the split decision. Hart versus Starling at Sturgis, as we previously mentioned. A great battle for these ladies as the main fight at that rowdy card. Tenaglia versus Soto at BKFC on DAZN. The majority decision for that title over there in Spain. And Stuart Rivera, BKFC in DAZN, November 9th, where it was a unanimous decision, but maybe could have been a lot closer to us, given if some of those knockdowns that were not called were indeed counted.
I mean, those were all great fights, amazing, but I got to go with Tenaglia versus Tony Soto. Man, just being there, that energy that was going on, that was something, I swear, I kept saying, this is like the movie Rocky 2. They were both tired. They were both exhausted. They were both giving it everything they had. They were landing hard shots. They were dealing with adversity. I mean, that was a perfect fight. If you watch that and you don't like bare knuckle, I got nothing for you, man. I mean, we're not friends. We wouldn't be on the same wavelength of anything. We just don't see eye to eye. That was an amazing fight. If you don't like that, you don't like combative sports. That was one of the better fights I've been to, so that's got to be Fight of the Year, hands down, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a great fight. And like you said, two guys who come in there, when you saw them in the press conference, they obviously did not like each other. A lot of trash talking. It seemed like they might even get into it right there before we even got to the fight card, and then put on such a battle back and forth that they actually have respect for each other afterwards. Shows the type of fighters that both those guys are. Looking forward to seeing what is next for both of them. Chris Lights Out Loud, thanks so much for joining us. Can't wait to talk to you again in 2025 and start getting into Knucklemania 5 here on the Combat Sports Report.
It's going to be a great year.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. And now we're going to talk about the year in 2024 for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. We're bringing on our man, Sean Merriman, of course, the founder, the president of Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And Sean, it's been a banner year for Lights Out this year. A ton of events from Lights Out 13 all the way to 21. A great year of fights for you guys. Before we get into the one we just saw, and to wrap up the year, how do you feel like the year has been for you guys in 2024, and what are you most looking forward to in next year with this organization?
You know, this year has been a game changer for us for a lot of reasons, man. You know, when you're kind of getting into this space and you got, you know, different promotions out here and you know, a couple that's bigger than you, you always, you know, you're fighting for space, right? You want to get out there and let people know about what you're doing. And this year was a turning point for us. I mean, we had fighters, you know, coming to fight from us from everywhere, not even just from the States, from all over the world. And, you know, a lot of that happened in 2025. And we got, you know, a bunch of big announcements, some more signings coming up, some more eyeballs and distribution. We got some tech that should come out in the Sport Techie and Tech Crunch next week about what our plans in 2025. And so this is a turning point for us this year, man. We're looking to take it, you know, take another step 2025 and hopefully have anywhere between, you know, 12 and 18 fights.
And what's been the big thing for you that's, you know, allowed you to have this explosion with Lights Out this year? I mean, you guys had, you know, 3 or 4 fights a year for the first couple of years, and then, you know, going up to, you know, with 10 fights this year, it was a huge explosion of, you know, the amount of product you're able to put out there. What was the biggest thing that drove that for you guys this year?
You know, I think for one, you know, the quality of fighters, man, like we just took it to another level with these guys. If you watch any of our fights, any one of these guys, you know, our co-main event, our last 3 or 4 fights tonight, any of these guys could be ready for the UFC a few fights later. Even some of our amateurs that we got on the card can turn pro the next fight. You know, we have just very, very high level of fighters. And also, too, the fan base, man, has just kept growing. You know, I'm actually headed off to the Chargers game in a couple hours to go you know, see them kick the Broncos' butt for Thursday Night Football. And, you know, when I'm out now, people ask us about, you know, when's the next event? You know, when can we get there? When are the tickets going to go on sale? And that's, you know, that's been a kind of driving point because it wasn't like this a year and a half ago. So I'm excited, man. And also I see some of these other promotions launching and things. Man, I've been around this thing for 18 years. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people come and go and just not doing it right. And we're doing it the right way. We're doing it organically by building the brand, building these fighters up, and get ready for them to go to the next level of their career.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of promotions, obviously you want to keep fighters as long as you can, but you know, you've done a great job knowing where you guys are and knowing, you know, not holding these guys back. It's been great to watch them go on and do even more things outside of your organization, see the new blood coming in. It's been a great ebb and flow for you guys. And, you know what, on that note, let's talk about this last card we just had, December 7th, the LXF 21. You had two titles on the line. Now, let's first talk about our you know, crazy friend that we've had on this show you've talked about before, Bulletproof Blake Troop, now the heavyweight champion. You know, have we fired him from the broadcast booth to make sure he's just focused on this belt, or what's going on with Blake? Is there a future for him with this title? Is he going to stick around a little longer than he planned?
You know, it's funny because we were going back and forth about whether he should be in the booth for a couple of fights before he got in the cage. And initially, I didn't think it was a good idea. I said, Troop, man, just lock in for the fight, get ready for the fight, and lock in. And you know what I said? It's Blake Troop, man. He's a character. He's an entertainer. So I agreed to go ahead and do it, and he went out, did his thing, man. He fought a tough opponent. Let me tell you, that was one of the craziest finishes I've seen because for a time I didn't know who had who. You know, and he finished with that Blanc flute choke, and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen that choke by anybody in several years, man. So this show you just the high level and skill, and look, it's just really up to him whether he want to come back and do it again. It's on the table. I thought he looked great. So if he want to come back in the next fight or two when we go February 7th in Long Beach again, then I'm open to it.
Great performance by him. Congratulations to him on winning the belt. Then you had, of course, Arnold Jimenez defend his belt against Lewis. A great, almost dominating performance by him there. That second round finish that he got with the submission. Great job by him. But, we've always talked to you about how much you love MMA, about how you're in the gym. You find a lot of these fighters by going and training yourself at these gyms. It's kind of word of mouth because you're there. And it's a good thing that you're still working out and training and around these gyms because you had to get in the middle there once you got the face off with Jimenez's next opponent. It got a little ugly at the war. Whereas the belt getting tossed, and you had to break it up before you guys gave the fight away for free.
Yeah, man, that was close. And we saw Ethan Ewan, who's our next up and coming guy that we got, man. He was hanging around the cage, and I said, "Look, what are you looking in the cage for?" He said, "Hey, I want to get in there." I said, "All right, well, come on, let's go." And I didn't think it was going to go this way. I know there's a lot of bad blood between these two. I didn't know that. I didn't expect the push and the shove. But I tell you right now, man, anybody that missed this fight when they go, you're going to miss a big one. And one of these guys is going to end up in the UFC. Whoever come out the winner of this fight, I believe really got a chance. But again, man, we got the next up and coming superstar, so I'm proud of that.
And of course, as good as the 2024 has been for Lights Out, you cannot rest on your laurels. You got to keep, improving, keep going on the next one. And you already have that scheduled February 7th. You are going to be back at the Thunder Studios there in LA. You're going to have Artiga in his fight there on the 27th against Cortez. Tell us about that fight and about some of the things you're trying to put together for that card and beyond in 2025 with Lights Out.
So about this card, it was originally scheduled for January 25th. And I have the East-West Shrine Bowl coming up from the 25th to the 28th. There's going to be on my network with Lights Out Sports TV. And that's going to be a huge, huge deal to practice that week. And also, we got the Super Bowl coming up. And I just thought that what better way to get down there at Super Bowl and Radio Row and get a chance to promote the fight, promote this next one, man. It's going to be massive. We finish up strong. You can plan all these fights as much as you want in these matchups, and you don't necessarily know how things are going to go. You just hope the match make the best card and kind of blow it up. But you don't know it's going to have this kind of turnout. And so 2025, man, we got some big announcement coming. We got some big signings, but also some really, really cool tech. The Shot Tracker partnership with the Chip in the Glove is going to come. We'll be live with those. And also we have a sponsorship AI that's going to be there, man. So a lot of tech, a lot of signings coming in 2025.
Well, I'll tell you, Sean, I appreciate you moving that card because everyone seems to want to be on the 25th. We got BKFC card, we got PFL. I'm sure the UFC's going to jump in there. I got to see my family before I go away for the Super Bowl. Thank you for having a little bit of time there and appreciate it. And thanks for your time here with us on the Combat Sports Report in 2024. Can't wait to see what is next for you guys and talk to you again in the new year.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
Like, they may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out and just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back as we wrap up our year of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our guests that were on the show today. BKFC broadcaster Chris Lights Out Lytle, always there calling all the action ringside for the BKFC. PFL analyst Ian Parker, who always gives us great insight on the betting angles for the PFL, and we'll continue to do that in 2025 with all these great fights. Great to talk to him about the year in PFL. And Lights Out president and founder Sean Merriman. It was a big year, a banner year for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. More events than they've ever held before, and they're looking to expand and continue and grow even more. Great year for all these organizations. Great year for us here on SportsGrid, covering them. Thank you so much for always being there and watching and being part of the show as we had a great year, not only doing the show, but expanding it and making it even bigger and better and rebranding into the Combat Sports Report that we are now. Of course, had many weeks of just covering the BKFC, and now that we've added more partners to it, it makes it an even better show, more fun to do with all of you, and hopefully we can do even more in 2025 and expanding and growing and getting more and more of the world of combat sports in here to talk about it with you here on SportsGrid. Now, in previous years when we've done the year in review wrap-up, we kind of did maybe a Christmas wish list or, almost like a wish list or, what we want to have happen in the new year for all these fight organizations, whether it be fights we want to see or fighters we want to see more of or belts we want to see defended, all these kind of things. But you know what? This year, we have so many fights that are already being announced in the first month or two for these organizations that let's just look forward to it, because what else could we want than what we're already going to see from some of these organizations coming out in January. As we mentioned with Sean Merriman, January 25th, it seems like to be the day of fights for everybody right there before the Super Bowl week there, as we have both big cards from the PFL and the BKFC. Let's first start with the PFL. This Road to Dubai Champion Series that we're going to get. We obviously knew that in the first couple of weeks we were going to hear from Nurmagomedov versus Hughes. Hughes getting that title shot. He called for it after his win on that Super Fights pay-per-view, and he gets it against Nurmagomedov. This is going to be a great fight. Dagestan versus Ireland. Lots of bad blood between these countries for other fighters previously, including other Nurmagomedovs. And, we'll see what develops with these guys. Hughes, this is going to be a huge step up in competition for him. But you know what? That's what we said about the A.J. McKee fight, that, this was a level up for him. Is he on that level? Well, he got the win. It was a tough fight. It was a tight fight. Could have gone either way, but he gets the victory. So now he takes another big leap and gets the man that he calls for, a title shot here with Bellator. on the road to Dubai. Also going to include great fights right there at heavyweight. We're going to get a trilogy here between Corey Anderson and, of course, Ryan Bader. Not Ryan Bader. Both these guys have fought Ryan Bader at light heavyweight, but now they'll be fighting each other at heavyweight. Nemkov and Anderson fighting at heavyweight. Both these guys have held that light heavyweight title. Now they're going to be fighting at heavyweight. We'll see what holds as these guys put on a little extra weight. Do we get more power? Do we have more stamina, not trying to cut to 205? Either way, it should be a great battle. These guys the first time had this fight cut short due to a head knock. Then they fought again, and Nemkov got the victory. Can Corey Anderson get revenge here, or will it be 2-0 for Nemkov in this fight? And there's also so many other fights that are going to be added to it. We're seeing Makshimirapov going to be on this fight card as well. We're going to see so many others that are being added and added, as you see there. We've heard a couple. We've got the main ones here. They're adding the undercard fights as well, more and more filtering in. So this is going to be an awesome card. What else can you hope for? I mean, there's plenty of belts that we can hope for. There's plenty of battles we can want, new season. All those things are things that we can want. But when you're getting this gifted to you right out of the new year, don't be greedy. Just love this and can't wait to watch it. Also, as we said, the same night, Knucklemania 5. Down in Philadelphia, the first time for the BKFC in Pennsylvania, and the first time in their home city of Philadelphia. Dave Feldman, of course, growing up outside that city, his dad training many fighters there, him having his own fight career there. Now he gets to bring the BKFC there for the first time, and they are taking out all the stops. We're going to find out more and more in the next couple of weeks about other fights being added to it, but, I mean, Alvarez-Stevens at the top. Eddie Alvarez, the Underground King, Philly's own, defending his turf against Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens. That should be a great battle between these guys. You also have that heavyweight title on the line. Mick Terrell versus Ben Rothwell. We've been waiting for this one for months. We've been calling for it, and we are finally getting for it. Maybe for almost for a year, I think we've been calling for this fight. Finally, we get that to start 2025. You have a great heavyweight battle between Brady and Kalmus. Those two guys, are going to get in there and just go for blood. They're going to fight to the finish. Neither of them are going to be looking to go to the judges' scorecards. You have Hall making his return against Kimbo Slice Jr. We have Dustin Pegg fighting on that card against Burns. You have the ladies having a great fight that can steal the show between Taylor Starling and Beck Rawlings. These two matching up. That might be one of the fight of the night contenders in the end. Also, Thompson there at bantamweight getting in the mix as well. So many great fights that are going to be on this card already, and we're only going to get started. We're going to get more and more that we're going to see because they want to load up for Knucklemania in their home city. So can't wait to see what else we get in 2025 from the BKFC, from the PFL, and from us here on SportsGrid. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to talk to you in 2025.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.